Hello students, my name is Prerna and I'm your EVS teacher. And today from your EVS book Enviro, we are going to be reading chapter number 14. So let us start reading this chapter. The name of this chapter, chapter number 14, is Dealing with an Emergency. So what do we understand by emergency? Emergency is basically let's say a situation that just comes to us all of a sudden, which probably comes with a lot of which actually comes with a lot of problems. So let us see what all are we going to learn in this chapter. We're going to talk about natural disaster, then management of the effects of natural disaster, first aid for some common emergency situation. So it says a situation that poses an immediate risk to health, life, property or environment is called as an emergency. So when probably four things are put at risk, problem rises for these four things, it is called an emergency. What are these four things? Four things. First is life, then you have a health, life, property and environment. So basically four things. Wars and natural disasters may lead to an emergency. During such times, many people lose their means of livelihood and become homeless. In that situation, they require immediate help in terms of food, clothing, and shelter. So now we first discuss about natural disaster. So what exactly is a natural disaster? Something which is caused by nature, and these are sudden and beyond our control. A lot of damage to both life and property can be caused by natural disasters. Some of these are earthquakes, you have volcanoes, you have cyclones, you have floods, you have droughts, you have epidemics, you have volcanoes. All these are natural disasters. So the first natural disaster that we're going to talk about is an earthquake. Like in the previous chapter, we discussed about the fact that earthquakes are very common in which part of the world? In Japan, right? So first let's understand what exactly is an earthquake. What is the definition? Sudden movements within the earth shake its crust, which is called the earthquake. So basically the movement of the tectonic plates of the earth, when those move and it affects the crust, it is called an earthquake. It leads to an earthquake. They are more frequent than any other kind of natural calamity. Every year, different parts of the world experience hundreds of earthquakes. On 26 January 2001, a massive earthquake caused great destruction in major parts of Gujarat, and which was the main part of Gujarat where this earthquake had a very bad impact. It was Bhuj in Ahmedabad. Thousands of people lost their families and property. Uttarakhand is also news recently because of major earthquakes. The earthquakes occur due to the movement of the plates below the Earth's crust. Our Earth is made up of many irregular plates of rocks, most part molten below them. When two plates collide, the Earth shakes, resulting in cracks on the upper surface. Sometimes the plates shrink after lowering of temperature. This shrinkage procedure shrinkage produces pressure of one plate over the other and finally a movement or shaking. As a result of earthquake, huge buildings, poles, trees, etc. are smashed in no time. Bridges and flyovers also come down. So imagine the impact of the earthquake is such that even a metal bridge, it falls in seconds. Sometimes cracks are formed in the earth and the building along with the people and animals is also buried inside. The intensity of an earthquake is measured by an instrument which is called as the seismometer or seismograph. The intensity from 1 to 12 is divided from 1 to 12 is called Richter scale, and these are the different recordings on the scale. So what are the precautions that we need to take? If suddenly, we are sitting doing something and suddenly there's an earthquake, what are the precautions? First is do not panic and keep calm. If indoors, you need to take cover under a heavy table or a bed and hold on to something which is very strong. Stay away from glass objects and do not use the lift. Never ever use the lift if you see that there is an earthquake or if there's a fire in the building. If you are outdoors, you need to move away from heavy objects. You need to move away from trees also, from buildings, fine, because they might fall on you. And if you are in a crowded place, do not rush for the door. Instead, you need to take cover. That is, you need to just simply uh, go and you need to just put yourself under a heavy table or a desk. Be prepared for aftershocks. Keep an emergency kit, water and dry dry food ready in a bag next to you. Wear shoes to avoid cuts and bruises from broken glass. Take part in community crisis preparedness drills. All right. So, if God forbid there's an earthquake, what are the basic precautions? First, we need to ensure that if we are indoors, we need to take cover under a heavy object, or probably a table or something. Second, if we are outdoors, we need to ensure that we are not standing near heavy objects like a building or a tree. And if you are in a crowded place, then you should not try and go inside a building, right? And of course, you can also have an emergency kit with you always. The next natural disaster is a volcano. Volcanoes are hills or mountains with vent or crack. A volcanic eruption is the bursting out of hot melted rock, gas, steam and ash from deep inside the earth. So you can see these hot molten coming out of the earth, which is called as the lava. When the pressure of molten rock, uh, whenever the pressure of the molten rocks called lava increases, it moves up through a vent and puts the pressure on the upper covering of the vent, and then it starts erupting, and then the red hot reddish yellow orange kind of color lava, then it comes out, and whatever comes in the way of hot lava, it gets burnt. It is that hot. What are the precautions? You should not reside near them, of course. They should also make enough water bodies around the volcanic eruptions. On eruption, they should at once rush to a far away places. Take the animals with you or free them. So if any one of you has seen the movie Volcano, you probably can understand what exactly happens in a volcano and how we can protect ourselves in case of a volcano. The next natural disaster that we are talking about is a tsunami. And I'm sure most of you have heard this name a lot. It is a series of giant ocean waves produced by an underwater earthquake or volcanic eruption. So imagine under the sea or under the water, under the ocean, there is a strong earthquake. So what happens when there's an earthquake? Everything shakes, or a volcanic eruption. So the ocean waves, they become extremely giant, and these are 30 meters high and 200 kilometers long, and they can travel speed of 250 to 900 kilometers per hour across the entire ocean. What are the precautions? You can listen to the radio and TV reports and act according to tsunami warnings. Close the doors and windows if your house is strong or above it is at a high line. Do not go out into the sea. Stay away from power lines because they might have strong current in them. Trees and rivers, you should stay away from these things. Wear warm, waterproof clothes. Keep important papers, food, and an emergency kit in a waterproof bag. Till an all clear signal is given, do not move away from the shelter. So the next natural disaster that we need to talk about is a cyclone. It is a violent storm with very strong winds which move in a circle. It brings torrential rains. That these are caused by two low pressure systems towards which the strong winds gush at a speed which could be 100 kilometer per hour. So if you have ever traveled, I mean, if you sit in a car wherein the speed is 100 kilometer per hour, how fast it is? Now imagine wind at that speed. What would happen? So what are the precautions? You need to pay attention to cyclone experts. Move to higher areas and stay away from sea, trees, or buildings, and you need to wear warm clothes, right? And again, even in cyclones, you should never move out unless and until there is an all clear signal given. Next is floods. We are well versed with what exactly floods are. It is a large amount of water covering big areas of land. Floods are caused by heavy rainfall, high tide along with storms, sudden melting of snow, or collapse of a dam. Every year, the river overflows their banks in the rainy season, causing damage to crops, houses, cattle, and people. States like Assam, Orissa, and Bihar, they have flood almost every year. Can you imagine? Deforestation in West Bengal, Manipur, Tripura, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland causes frequent floods. Heavy floods destroy whole villages, the entire village. A number of cattle and people are drowned in the water. Precautions: you need to see that the roots of the tree are soil binders. People should grow enough trees on the banks of the river. High embankment, that is a kind of, you can say, a boundary wall on both sides of the river, provides safety for the villagers in the vicinity of the river. They should also build their houses on raised platforms. Dams are built to control the floods successfully. People living in flood prone areas should keep life saving tubes and enough food. And they should move to higher places at the time of flood. Next is drought and famine. So, a period of dry weather without rainfall is called as drought. Sometimes it does not rain enough in the rainy season, and most of the areas in our country depend on rain for irrigation. So, what is the result when there is no crop grown? Then there is a famine because there is lack of food. The people depending on farming face starvation. Large areas in Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Bihar are affected by drought almost every year. What are the precautions? You must plant more and more trees because trees, they attract rains. We must also arrange definite means of irrigation like wells, tube wells, and canals. So you can have sources through which water can be can be brought to the farms. And then you can make ponds to store rainwater. Now we talk about management of the effects of natural disaster. Now a natural disaster occurs, so what is it that we need to do after that? So whenever there is a natural disaster, the world community comes forward to help the victims. Hospitals, ambulance, police stations, fire brigades, Red Cross of the home country all work round the clock. That is 24 by 7. They work to help the people who have somehow survived in those natural disasters. People and charitable groups all over the world, they send food, they send clothing, and even medical aid supplies. So all these are basically brought to people who have suffered from the natural disaster. Then there are many non-governmental organizations which we call as NGOs. They are world over. They provide relief and support to people affected by natural disasters. Many agencies of the United Nations work actively to provide relief and help the process of rehabilitation of disaster affected people. United Nations Disaster Management Team, that is UNDMT, that is the acronym. In India, it consists of UNICEF, UNESCO, ILO, FAO, and WHO, who come forward to help those in times of need. And you also have armed forces who help people who are under the blunt sufferings of the natural disaster. What is the role of an individual and community? So we know that many individuals, they make a community. So the individual help grow up a community. So the individuals help grow up as a community help. We should learn how to take safety measures in the case of natural calamities. Now, how can we help as an individual? How can I help? So the first is immediate help. So you immediately go out to the people who have suffered from the natural disaster. All right. So, like in an earthquake, so you can try and save those people. Quick medical help. Take the doctor or call the doctor at the first place itself. That also you can do. Food and other essentials to provide food, water, maybe tents that can be used as homes, and then rehabilitation to collect contribution in the form of money, clothes, food, medicines, etc. from the neighborhood. And now we talked about first aid in some emergency situation. So it says emergency treatment given to an accident victim before the medical help becomes available. It is called as the first aid. See, the first aid means the first medicine or the first treatment which is given to a person who was met with an accident, or the immediate medical um, treatment which is given to a person who's met with an emergency, probably like an accident. That is called as first aid. And this is what a first aid box should contain: band-aid, cotton, then antiseptic lotion, gauze, small scissors, burnol, thermometer, forceps, tablets for fever, vomiting, all these. So you might have seen probably in your school bus also there would be a first aid box, or maybe a few of you might have a first aid box in your classrooms as well. Then the three rules a first aider should keep in mind. So let's say you see someone who's hurt. What are the three rules that you need to keep in mind? First is stay calm. You yourself need to stay calm. Let's say a person has met with a minor accident and his nose is bleeding, and you say, "Oh my God, your nose is bleeding. Oh my God, there's so much of blood coming out. My God, what's going to happen to you?" So you're scaring that person. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to calm down. Keep yourself calm first and tell the other person, "Hey, listen, I'm here. You're going to be fine. You're absolutely fine. We are here to take care of you." So what happens? The person who suffered from the accident becomes a little calm down, and then mentally that person feels good enough, and that strengthens his physical health as well. Then you need to act fast, not like, "Okay, don't mind. We are here. We are there to help you. See, I am also a human being. You are also a human being." You cannot be, saying so many things. Simple. "Hey, I'm here. Don't worry." And you start providing the aid to that person. And then you can try and arrange for a doctor as soon as possible. All right. So stay calm, then act quickly and look for a doctor on ASAP basis as soon as possible. Now, bleeding from nose, mouth, or ear. For a nosebleed, make the victim sit on a chair with his head high like this. Okay, slightly forward and pinch his nostrils for a few seconds. Like, don't pinch it really hard. So you make the person sit like this and just pinch the nostrils for a few seconds. But you let them breathe through their mouth. And if there is bleeding from the mouth, turn the person on his or her side to prevent choking. All right. Then bleeding from cuts or wounds. Wash your hands with soap before touching the wound. Very important. Clean it with an antiseptic lotion and cover it with a band-aid if available. Cover it with a cotton pad and bandage it. Raise the wound above the level of the heart to slow down the flow of blood of that area. All right. Then for severe burns, first is you immediately cool the burn by running cold water at least for 10 minutes. So let's say someone is cooking and the person suddenly gets a burn. So immediately tell the person, or you can just help the person come out and put that person, let's say hand, if the hand is burned, under the running cold water of the tap, and then cover the burn with a clean cloth to keep germs away from the wound. Do not break the blisters. Very important. If the person has suddenly developed blisters, do not break them, do not burst them because it is very painful. Or remove any cloth sticking to the wound. Then fracture. Let's say a person has a fracture. So when the bone cracks, it's called a fracture. So thin pieces of wood, cardboard, or even folded newspaper sheets can be used as splints. So you can see this to prevent further dislocation of the cracked bone. The purpose of a splint is to protect the wounded part from further damage until medical help arrives. Then if person has sprain, so sprain is like when a muscle gets pulled extremely. So you need to wrap some ice cubes in a towel, apply this cold compress on the injury. After 30 minutes, raise the injured limb and bandage it firmly to support. Choking, suddenly someone feels that, oh, I cannot breathe, I am unable to breathe. So what does it happen when some foreign elements they go into the windpipe instead of going into the food pipe, right? So the person cannot breathe. It's called choking. Encourage the person to cough. Immediately tell the person, start coughing. Tell that person, because what happens when he starts coughing, the heart starts pumping blood and then it finds the way. Keep the person's head lower than the chest. Slap between his shoulder blades with the heel of your palm. 4 to, so you can see this, so 4 to 5 times. Acting quickly can save lives. So you can probably, um, put a belt, make a belt with your hands around the person's waist, and then you press it with a few jerks. What happens is then the person, that food it is released, or the foreign particle it tends to find a way uh, in such a manner that the person stops choking, and you can save someone's life. With a little basic training, we all can become capable of helping each other in case of emergency. Also, being aware of what to do during natural disaster and whom to ask help for, we can help the the level of the damage to be reduced, because it is the community effort to help all. This would reduce the burden on the government and give us an opportunity to contribute effectively. See, so many things. And maybe what you can do is, like, whatever has been told to you in this lesson about what is the first aid you need to give to a person whose nose is bleeding, who's suffering from a fracture, from a sprain. Maybe you can probably get a copy of it and put it on your study table and also in your classroom, right? So that you have immediately have an idea about what is to be done. And of course, what you can do is that, let's take the example, like whatever is listed or whatever problems are listed here specifically about choking, you can have the nurse from your school or probably a doctor from your school to train, to actually give you a proper training about what can be done in case a person has a particular kind of emergency, how you can provide the first aid and save so many lives. All right. Thank you so much.